It took Germany more than 60 years to come to terms with how the Third Reich had treated Wehrmacht deserters. In the immediate post-war period, a few families and friends of those court-martialed by the Wehrmacht on the charges of desertion, undermining the military spirit, and treason pressed charges in occupation-era courts against the military prosecutors, judges, and commanders who had condemned their sons to death. They argue that German military justice in World War II had been incredibly harsh, that it had reflected Nazi worldviews, and that those in charge needed to be punished. Simultaneously, a handful of authors and playwrights on the intellectual left published stories, memoirs, and plays that challenged persisting images of the deserter as a coward, a scoundrel, and selfish egoist ready to leave his comrades in the lurch to save his own skin. Legal proceedings against military jurists and commanders stretched past the occupation period into the early years of the Federal Republic, when West German courts eventually decided that the Wehrmacht jurists and commanders had properly followed the law. Desertion, the defendants pointed out, was deemed a crime by militaries around the world, and they claimed that the Wehrmacht had not been any harsher in enforcing military law than had the Americans and British. Former Wehrmacht jurists began to create a narrative that portrayed Germany's wartime military justice system as independent of and even resistant to Nazi influence and ideology, an account that was at odds with short stories, plays, and reminiscences of literary figures such as Heinrich Böll, Werner Richter, and particularly Alfred Anders. By the late 1950s, efforts to rehabilitate deserters and punish former Wehrmacht jurists had stalled in West Germany. The critical views of the Wehrmacht, painted by the literary left, were pushed to the fringes by an outpouring of memoirs by former Wehrmacht commanders who pinned all blame for wartime crimes and excesses on Hitler, the party, and the SS. The Wehrmacht, these former generals and admirals claimed, had fought for Germany bravely and honorably. Those who deserted, they asserted, had betrayed their comrades and the German nation and had been justly punished. In East Germany, a different narrative emerged. East Germany's Socialist Unity Party rejected the sanitized memory of the Wehrmacht as an institution impermeable to Nazi penetration. Instead, East Germany's leaders insisted that the Wehrmacht had been a pillar of the Nazi state.